7 years ago when I started Fingerprint, what everyone said about subscription was, nobody will buy an app subscription for kids. Nobody will have multiple subscriptions in their house. Why would you need a subscription to apps when you have Netflix or you have YouTube or you have whatever? And how things have changed over the last 7 years. So I've just got a few slides to talk about the kids' app economy with a focus on subscription. But just a quick commercial about Fingerprint. I started the company 7 years ago after working in video gaming for most of my career and a 3-year diversion to Leapfrog where I was running product and marketing. So I learned a lot about the behavior of moms and kids and dads too, but how people made decisions about what content they wanted to bring into their house. And I started Fingerprint with an idea around creating actually Netflix for learning or Netflix for apps. But of course, 7 years ago, that wasn't actually even possible technically, but it really had the vision. And only now is it really possible, and are we really executing on it really as an industry. Our business today is sort of broken into two areas. One, we run enterprise content subscription services for kids with people like Samsung and Verizon. And two, we operate and develop subscription apps for people like Highlights for Children, and soon we're launching an all-new platform of our own called Kodomi. We work with many developers that are here, actually about 400 developers in 60 countries. So if you are in the kids space and you're doing fun or learning content, we'd love to talk to you, or we're already talking to you. So just to set the stage, kids isn't just about gaming, and everyone's probably seen the data, but really kids are consuming content of all sorts, and between education and gaming and over-the-top video and ebooks, those are all the kinds of things that parents are thinking about bringing into their house for their children. And by all estimations, there's about 300 million families in the world that have mobile subscriptions, devices for kids, and the ability to pay for subscription products. So very large market and growing. And what we're seeing, and you probably all are feeling this in your own lives, is that more and more content is really being accessed through subscription-based and curated content platforms because there's just too much out there. The App Store alone has more than 100,000 active apps for children, and that number is growing every day. And the consumer's being trained by things like Netflix in particular to be willing to accept a range of content that's changing all the time that feels like a great value. And so, our subscription business in the kids app market could not exist if it really wasn't for Netflix and other kinds of subscription services training the consumer. And in fact, an interesting statistic or two is that when Netflix polled their customers, 38% of them said that they purchased Netflix because they had children in the home. And on average, US families that have subscriptions of any type have about 8 subscriptions between mobile and Netflix and apps and everything else. So this is a business model that really works for people. And lastly, you probably know about subscriptions for physical products like loot crates, et cetera. The customer demographic for people buying those types of subscription products, whether it's like Dollar Shave Club or little passports, the average demographic is a family that has 3 to 6-year-olds in their house because it's convenient, they like the monthly payment, et cetera. So there's lots of kind of market trends that are feeding into this. So why is subscription working now? Since the beginning, the kids app business has been like, I call it the get rich slow. And what we've seen over time since the beginning of the iPhone first came out is we've morphed from, okay, it's really a premium games business. Well, that was logical because most of the people making apps came out of the games business and understood make a quality product, put it up in the App Store. A few years later was the big shift in freemium games on the adult side, and everybody's like, okay, well, let's go to freemium. And so most games became freemium with a variety of different kinds of business models with trials and upsell to content packs. And then, that wasn't working so great, and there was lots of concern about kids and in-app purchases and the FCC and everything else. And then suddenly, bundles were prevalent. And we began to see, as recently as 3 years ago, that a few companies were starting with subscriptions. Well, today, subscription is really the dominant platform, but that really creates lots of barriers to entry for smaller developers and people that don't have the capability of running live operations. So today, there's over 1,000 subscription apps around the world, and these are just a few of them. And it's media companies doing subscriptions that are focused on video, and some of the biggest ones, of course, are like Disney and Nickelodeon and Sesame Street. Then lots of learning products with ABC Mouse really leading the charge there, but many other products in the reading area like Epic Books and Reading Rainbow and Farfaria, and then a bunch of different gaming products like Animal Jam, like Tokaboka's gaming platform, et cetera. So we're beginning to see lots of experimentation with a wide variety of different types of subscription products. So it's not as simple as just saying, hey, I'm going to take my app and make it a subscription product. There's a lot of thought that goes into figuring out what the best opportunity for the customer will be. I'll put in a little commercial here. I'm not going to talk about Samsung Kids or Verizon Kids today, but we've gotten a front row seat to seeing a whole new category of aggregation apps that really offer the consumer the ability to download unlimited access to content. And what we see is that not only are parents embracing thank you. Not only are parents embracing subscription apps that give them access to lots and lots of third-party apps, but kids are downloading an unbelievable amount of content, on average more than 20 apps a day. So it's proving out the whole thought process around Netflix. So some of this is pretty obvious, but why the shift to subscription? It really breaks down into 4 areas, and I'll start with commerce. The biggest thing that's happened is that, a year and a half ago, Apple came out and said all types of apps are eligible for subscription, for recurring subscription, whereas before it was really only books and music, and so that was a big win for game developers. And then Apple and Google both changed their fee structure so that after your customer had been a customer for 12 months, the rate went down to 15%, so suddenly it was a much more profitable proposition. We've talked about the widespread adoption of subscription services, but that really helped us with the education of the consumer. We also saw that with all the unhappiness around IAP and ads and products, subscription really solved that problem. And then lastly, these products tend to have improvements in ARPU and long-term value of the customer, and that allows you to have more predictable revenue, more dollars to actually plan and invest in your product development, and that's generally better for the developer and better for the content owner. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but here's the key point. In 2017, 8 of the top 10 apps in the iOS store were subscription product. That's up from 3 in 2014, so it's really an incredible shift. And if you look at 2014, you had ABC Mouse, which at that point was more of a web product that had just come to mobile, Play Kids, which was a video product, and Disney, which was a video product. Look at 2017. It's across the map. It's learning product, it's video product, it's book product, so it's a major change. The mind-blowing statistic is really not the top 10. but it's the top 25. So today, 18 of the top 25 grossing kids apps all use a subscription model. And what you see is that the largest category, nearly half, is actually learning product. And so there's something happening here where parents are really looking at subscriptions and learning and saying, I like the idea of progression and new content coming every day, and it's easy for me to justify buying a subscription product. The other large category is really video, and again, consumers have been trained about buying video subscription services. I love this stat. If you compare it to games over the same time period, pretty mind-blowing, really. You know, the game category is all freemium. In the kids category, no freemium in the top, all subscription, and a couple of premium. So why is that? We've heard a lot about this today, so I won't belabor the point, but the biggest single thing is, as marketers, we don't have the same tools available to sell parents and to sell kids that we do if we were selling games to anybody else. The payer and the player are two separate people, and the parent is actually both our customer as well as the barrier to selling the kid. We also don't have all the tools like push notifications and other types of engagement mechanics that we can use to get them to buy, and we can't be super aggressive about what we do. And so we really have a lot of limitations in terms of how we can make the freemium model work. The other thing I want to mention is I call the moment of truth. You know, subscription products tend to work with a free trial. And the best companies making subscription look at that free trial time period, and they're measuring everything about it. How much content are kids consuming? How much time are they spending in the free trial? And what do we have to do that's going to be most likely to get them to convert? Well, the moment of truth for kids' subscription products really happens when the parent decides to do the free trial, because in the App Store, once I've decided to do the free trial at the end of the 7-day period, it just converts to a paying subscriber. Then raw inertia and the parent not paying attention might keep that customer as a subscriber for weeks and weeks, if not months and months. And so it's another reason that really makes the subscription business more valuable for this customer. So I'm just going to give one really quick example. So we worked on a game that was a kids' critical thinking game targeted at kids 5 to 8. Super excited about it, tested incredibly well, thought it was amazing. We launched it as a freemium game with a sample pack of 10 activities, about an hour and 15 minutes of average playtime, so a good sample, with an upsell to content packs of $2.99 for additional 50 activities. So it seemed great, testing was awesome, put it out there, and a new pack every 4 weeks. We put it out there, and after 6 months, a ton of resources, lots of optimization, our conversion to paid was less than 2%. But I was so fixated on why this game wasn't working and by this point, subscriptions were beginning to really come about, that we decided we were going to convert it into a subscription product with exactly the same content. And the only thing we did was we changed to a 7-day free trial. We gave more activities up front, and then we upsold to full access for content for $3.99 a month, and made a commitment to the consumer that we were going to give 10 new apps every week. So this pie chart is a measurement of what we saw in sales over months 3 through 6 with app 2 versus app 1. And you can see we sold almost 20 times as much with app 2 as we did with app 1. So pretty, good numbers from our perspective. So a couple of things. Everybody here is tracking all the same KPIs we are. Here's the difference in KPIs between the freemium product and the subscription product I just talked about. So on the freemium side, you see in the green our App Store conversion, people that we got to the App Store page, and then downloaded the app was significantly higher, more than 50% on the freemium side. We asked ourselves, why is that? And the answer is, people think that subscription is a commitment. And so they get to the App Store page, they're like, holy shit, it's a subscription, and a lot of people are just gonna bail right there. So the add to conversion ratio was much tougher in subscription. But then as we got down to people that actually started playing the product, what we saw was those customers that decided to do the free trial had actually mentally kind of committed, hey, I'm doing a free trial. And so our D1 retention was higher, not a lot, but was higher. The percentage of people actually putting in their credentials to buy the product was high. And then once we had them as a trial, we were converting over 80% of people to pay. And that is partially inertia and partially because we had really optimized the trial to get people to convert. So net, we got more than 11% of people to pay for this product versus the 1.3% on average from the freemium game. So feel like can't duplicate that on every product, but it was some pretty serious learning for us, and we've been sort of working on that ever since. So almost lastly, many of you are probably doing subscription products or thinking about them already. And you're probably getting lots of feedback from people around how many subscriptions, will they pay for a subscription, do I have enough content, all that kind of stuff, all awesome questions. These are sort of my rules of thumb, and there's no magic or silver bullet here. The first is, unless it's a gaming product, like Animal Jam or something like that, your product should be targeted at 3 to 8 year olds, because once kids get to be 7 or 8 years old, they're choosing their own stuff. And it's very hard to get subscription products sold directly to the child as opposed to the parent. So that's number one. Second, really pay a ton of attention to what you have for your introductory trial, because I think about subscription apps like your trial needs to be like the pilot for a TV show. Like the kid has to go in there and play it and think it's awesome and just like be craving whatever's next. So you have to be like super vigilant about what that experience is. You also need to be planning, I think Apple rules say you have to be planning for a roadmap of 2 years of content. You better start out with at least a year's worth of content on your plan, because you might discover that the content consumption is much higher than you expected, and you're gonna need to be ready and to deliver that in case you find that the content consumption and your retention are directly related, which you will find out. Then, of course, look at the content and the value and make sure they match up, because the highest performing apps have a ton of content in them, and so you really need to pay attention to that. And then lastly, don't go into this without thinking, I've got to invest in all the right kind of tools to create engagement. And that's not just with the child. Can I, am I using things, what am I doing to communicate with the child in the app? What am I doing to communicate with the parent? Should there be any kind of reporting? Should I be sending the parent some kind of statement around the value? Or what are the things that you can do to keep the child and the parent engaged? Because that'll be the biggest key to you retaining. And then lastly, you need to be thinking, I want to keep this user for at least 12 months, because at 12 months, the royalty rate goes down to 15%, things get super profitable. And so you should really be thinking, okay, what is it gonna cost me to acquire this user, and what it's gonna take to keep them for 12 months? And if you can answer that in a way that feels profitable, go for it. So that's all I really have, and I'm happy to answer any questions that might exist.
Hi, thank you. The presentation was really great and helpful for me. In terms of subscription, how it works. When they subscribe for a trial, you get their credit card information, and then when the trial ends, you sign them up automatically, or the trial itself is free, and then there's some push notification to make a payment because it came to an end?
Well, it can work either of those ways and other ways as well. You know, if your product is in the App Store, the decision is going to be, do you put a hard paywall, which in subscription means I ask the customer to sign up for the free trial, and at the end of the free trial, they'll automatically be charged in the App Store, or do I allow them to skip the signing up for the free trial and just start playing the product, and at the end of, at some determined time, then you start trying to get them into a trial or upsell them to paid. But if you do the second without the hard paywall, the product will tend to behave a lot more like a freemium game than it does like a subscription. But there's a wide variety of ways that companies do it, and many of them work.
Like if in the kids apps we are not allowed to ask basically for information, so how do you manage to sign them up for a trial and get this information initially? This is happening on the website, and then they go to the app and download the app and just subscribe?
Well, it depends on what the product is. So if the product is in the App Store, if the product is in the App Store, you have to upsell them just like you would any other app. If the product is not in the App Store and you're doing direct billing via your website using Stripe or PayPal or something like that, you're typically getting the email address from the parent as part of the trial period, and then you can start marketing directly to them.
I have a question. You say you have 1 year of content, or at least that's the important thing to have before you launch.
You need a path to 1 year of content, and I believe Apple requires for you to do a recurring subscription product a pathway to 2 years.
Now, from your experience, would you say that it's like the 20-80 rule, as far as only 20% of the content is used 80% of the time? And if that's the case, or is it not the case?
It totally depends on the app.
So what does your company do? I want to hear more about that. Like, it facilitates lumping a bunch of apps together in a subscription? It sounds really cool.
Yeah, so we've created a mobile platform that handles like the full stack of a aggregated subscription product. And so we can take any group of apps and essentially bundle them together in a service that can deliver apps however you choose. And then we handle everything from the content ingestion, content categorization, merchandising on the platform, building of the front-end client, and then the ongoing reporting to the partner, as well as all the royalty reporting.
So for something like that, are they apps that also are like have constant streams of content, or is it that you subscribe to get just lots of new standalone apps coming?
Yeah, so it depends on the product, but say for the Samsung product, they're all standalone apps that live within this one big umbrella.
Cool, very cool.
Sure.
Hey Nancy, good presentation.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you know, I took some pictures for you, so you can use them.
Okay,
That's
good.
why I'm not a creep.
Don't make me look fat.
So my question is, I mean, obviously, one of the big successes of subscription is now that people subscribe for free trials and then basically are locked in without them knowing it. I can see this changing in the future, that such that there was going to be policies against such a lock-in process. How do you see that affecting the subscription business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, my personal theory is that the complaints that have existed over the last few years about kids and IAP will probably begin to apply to the subscription business too. And we've already begun to see Apple send notifications at the end of each billing period and that sort of thing. Same thing with Google. So I think that we'll probably start with a place where a customer will opt into some sort of notifications about their billing. And then eventually there may be the change in the way recurring payments work. But I think like everything else with the app stores, we'll have to learn to work around it. I think the other thing just worth mentioning, and we haven't talked about this at all yet, is many of the most successful subscription products use web sub as well, and they're driving their marketing to the web, and then they're taking the customer payment and customer information on the web and sort of circumventing some of the app store rules. And so I think we're going to continue to see that happen as well.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Thanks all.